from my brother and his friends, and tasted the sweet perfume of the mountain grass I rolled down. I was younger then. Take me back to when I found my heart and broke it here, made friends and lost them through the years. And I've not seen the boring fields in so long. I know I've grown, but I can't wait to go home. But I can't wait to go home. I'm on my way, driving at 90 down those country lanes, singing to Tiny Dancer, and I miss the way you make me feel. It's real when we watch the sunset over the castle on the hill. Miss the way we watch the sunset. 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 Lost without you, can't help myself. How does it feel to know that I love you, baby? I'm lost without you, can't help myself. How does it feel to know that I love you, baby? Tell me how you love me more and how you think I'm sexy, baby. But you don't want nobody else. You don't want this guy. You don't want that guy. You wanna touch yourself when you see me. Tell me how you love my body and how I make you feel, babe. You wanna roll with me. You wanna hold me. You wanna stay warm and get out of the cold with me. I just love to hear you say it. It makes a man feel good, babe. Tell me you depend on me. I need to hear it. I'm lost without you.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our final day here. We'd like to kindly ask that you find your seat at this time and come on in so that we can start our program. Thank you so much.
How does it feel to know that I love you, baby?
Okay. Morning, everyone. Okay, I heard this table and I heard that table. There's about 50 other tables. So let's try that again. Good morning, everyone. There we go. That's better. Okay. Well, good morning and welcome to the final day of the Phoenix Society World Burn Congress. And what an incredible past couple days it's been. The energy, the stories, and even the quiet tears in these rooms have been nothing short of extraordinary. Many of us have cherished old relationships, and many of us have built new relationships. We have learned, we have healed, and we have risen together. And as I look out at all of you this morning, survivors, caregivers, nurses, therapists, families, first responders, I see truly what this means. We are a community that rises together. It's truly an honor to stand before all of you today, among heroes, among hearts, among healers, that have known both the depths of pain and the heights of resilience. And on behalf of Akron Children's Hospital and our entire Burn Institute, I want to thank the Phoenix Society for this extraordinary gathering and the privilege of joining you here at the World Burn Congress. To be in this room surrounded by all of you is truly humbling. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Anjay Kandwal, and I serve as the director of the Adult and Pediatric Burn Institute at Akron Children's Hospital. What defines me, actually, what defines all of us in burn care is a deep respect for the resilience of the human spirit. Every day, I have the privilege of witnessing that resilience firsthand in the faces of patients who fight through mental and physical pain and anguish, in families who refuse to lose hope, and in teams of clinicians who pour every ounce of skill and empathy in every moment of recovery. Each of you here knows that a burn injury is not just a physical wound. It is a fracture in identity, in confidence, in what was once certain. The journey forward is not linear. It twists, it scars, it tests. But through that journey, we've also witnessed the most remarkable phenomenon, healing that transcends medicine, healing born of connection, of empathy, of seeing someone else's scars and realizing, I am not alone, or that you are not alone. At Akron Children's Hospital, our burn program serves both adults and pediatrics. And as a verified center, we see patients not from just Ohio, but from across the tri-state area. Families who come to us in their darkest hour, trusting that we can help restore not only their health, but their sense of wholeness. Extending from our revolutionary work in minimally invasive spray skin application to one of the most comprehensive reconstructive and laser programs in the world. And our philosophy is simple. Burn care doesn't stop when the wounds close. Healing must extend beyond the hospital, beyond the clinic, into the home, and into the heart. Because a burn injury affects every aspect of life. It changes how a person moves, how they feel, how they look, and even how they see themselves, regardless of the size of injury. To me, this is the soul of burn care, the connection between science and humanity. It's not just about replacing skin, it's about rebuilding, and not on an individual basis, but as a community, because we rebuild and we rise together. And that's why this moment here at the World Burn Congress feels so powerful. To have this gathering right here, so close to Akron, so close to our home, is deeply meaningful to us, because we know that healing thrives in community, and the Phoenix Society has been the heartbeat of that community for decades. We're so fortunate that our hospital and that our philanthropists and that our partners, such as the Aluminum Can for Burn Children's, for countless years they've supported attendees to experience this empowerment. We have 32 people here today, which is great. And I'm privileged, thank you. And I'm privileged to be here with them. And my team, the group of people from Akron Children's, they really are the heart and soul of the Institute. When we first began our collaboration with the Phoenix Society, our goal was clear. We wanted to make sure that no survivor walks alone. And that's what programs like SOAR are all about, right? Through SOAR, we can connect burn survivors and their families with others who have already walked a path of recovery. It's not just peer support. It's lived empathy. It's the moment a patient realizes, someone understands me. Someone made it through, and maybe I can too. And through the Journey Forward program, we extend that support even further. This program reminds survivors that recovery isn't a destination. It's an ongoing process of rediscovery, of resilience, and of purpose. It empowers survivors to define their new normal, not just as a limitation, but as a triumph. There's a quote by Christopher Reeve, Superman. A hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to preserve and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. Anchored by that quote, we celebrate all of our survivors at Akron Children's by a bell-ringing ceremony and a clap-out, awarding each survivor a medal inscribed with 4 words: courage, strength, resilience, and hope. Interestingly enough, in the background of that medal is the phoenix and a collection of homes, community rising together. Looking ahead, we must deepen our relationship with the Phoenix Society to combine our strengths in innovation, in advocacy, and education so that together we will redefine what is possible for burn care and, importantly, for survivor support. And we continue this journey, our journey forward. Let us remember that healing doesn't end when the wound closes. It begins when we rediscover our purpose. And today, we prepare to welcome someone who has helped shape that very purpose for burn care around the world. Someone whose leadership, whose research and compassion have inspired countless caregivers and survivors alike. Dr. Rob Cartato is a name that resonates deeply across the global burn community. He is a Phoenix Society board member, a recently retired burn surgeon, and a past president of the American Burn Association. Throughout his career, Dr. Curtado has exemplified excellence, not only in the operating room, but in his tireless commitment to improving systems of care, educating the next generation, and advancing clinical practice that guides burn care across the world. What makes Rob so special is not just his knowledge, but his humanity. Those of us who know him can attest that he brings warmth and humility to every interaction. He spent decades helping others heal, yet he remains grounded in the simple joys of life. And so now, when he's not teaching or leading, you'll find him at his cabin north of Toronto, painting in his art studio, surrounded by the peace of the woods. He and his wife, Marianne, share that serenity with their son, Thomas. And I suspect that's where Rob's creativity, reflection, and passion for beauty find their truest expression at this point. Dr. Curtado has long been a bridge builder between the Phoenix Society and the American Burn Association, between science and compassion, between excellence and empathy. His work has touched countless lives, and his influence continues to shape how we care, how we teach, and how we lead. And so today, it is my privilege and my personal honor to welcome a visionary surgeon, a mentor to many, and a friend to us all, Dr. Rob Curtado.
Is this mic on? Can you hear me? Well, I'm going to go a little old school here. You can see the paper, but I hope this works. Thank you for that very kind introduction. That's going to get choked up. But it's just such an honor to be here in front of this extraordinary community this morning. I'm going to take you on a journey. And I'm going to tell you a journey that involves stories. It's a story about burn care providers, it's a story about patients, and it's stories about survivors. And it doesn't matter if you're a burn survivor, the loved one of a burn survivor, or a burn care provider, or a fighter fire. These stories show why the bonds between everyone in this community remain as important now as they always have been. Why should we use stories? Well, here's why. Tell me the facts, and I'll learn. Tell me the truth, and I'll believe it. But tell me a story, and it will live in my heart forever. Author and master storyteller Mark Yaconelli taught me quite a while ago that stories are important because we listen to stories, we remember from stories, and we learn from them. And sometimes a story can save us. Some of the stories you're going to hear this morning are about you. Some will be about your caregivers. Some stories are going to be from the past, and some will be from the present. But what unites every one of these stories is a value we share and which has brought us all here together this morning. And that value is compassion. Now, I don't know if it's because of the widespread chaos the world is experiencing right now, but we're in a state of anomie. It's a term that Emil Durkheim, the father of modern sociology, coined over 100 years ago to mean normlessness. Not a new normal, but no normal. It's a time of compassion fatigue and burnout. It feels sometimes like we're getting less and less connected. And so there seems to be no better time to talk about compassion and how vital it is to reconnecting us. To be honest, I didn't ever imagine I'd be up here talking to this group about compassion. But I'm going to tell you my story. This is my dad, and in September of 2009, at the age of 86, he arrived at the burn center where I worked as a surgeon with severe burns. And I think, as everyone can imagine, it's every burn care provider's absolute worst nightmare. My family and my dad had good discussions. The social worker was incredibly helpful. And we all reached a decision together that he wanted comfort measures only, and he died peacefully a few days after his admission. And you know what? I had never forgotten the empathy and the compassion that were shown to me by our burn team until 2023. And at that time, our burn team looked after a very critically ill woman with the absolute worst facial burns I had ever encountered in my 30 years of surgical practice. And I made this really good connection with her daughter, and I'm just going to name her Sandra. That's not her real name. And despite our best efforts, Sandra's mother unfortunately died from sepsis during her admission. And I heard about it later, and then I forgot about it. And then, about 2 months later, for no apparent reason, I was thinking of that patient and her daughter Sandra, and I was horrified that I had not bothered to call Sandra, this person that I had made this really, really good connection with, even if it was just to express my condolences. And, you know, despite having walked in Sandra's own shoes, I had somehow lost or forgotten something very important: compassion. And so, all because of my lost connection with the member of a family member of a patient, my loss of compassion, and the connections I have made with some of you in the audience that are here today and who I met through the first World Burn Congress I attended a couple of years ago, I have never been more interested in talking about compassion. And this is why I'm going to speak about compassion this morning, about how it connects all of us, survivor with survivor, and survivor with caregiver. Now, our journey this morning is going to start with a story that took place way back on August the 31st, 1941, in the sky high above Great Britain. That's when Royal Air Force pilot Tom Gleaves' Hurricane fighter plane was struck by incendiary ammunition. The aerial bombardment of London by the German Luftwaffe was at the height of its rage, and Airman Gleave was defending his native land. Now, to minimize weight and maximize efficiency, the Air Force had actually deliberately placed an uninsulated and unsealed reserve fuel tank directly behind and below the pilot's steering column. It turned out to be a fatal design flaw because when those bullets struck, the tank exploded. And as the plane accelerated up to 220 miles per hour in a nosedive, the flames were fanned by the rushing air, and they waxed into what the pilots morbidly referred to as Hell's Brew, or the Orange Death. And flames would meet the pilots' hands, their faces, their necks, their legs, head on. Now, fortunately, Pilot Gleave had the presence of mind to eject. He pulled the ripcord of his parachute, and he slowly descended to earth. And here, in his own words, is what he remembered. My ankle and each side of my right foot were burned. The skin on my right leg, from the top of the thigh to just above the ankle, had lifted and draped my leg, and my service gloves had been burned off, and the skin from my wrists hung down like paper bags. The right side of my arm and my face and neck were also burned. I could see all right, although it felt like I was looking through slits in this mass of swollen skin, and I came to the conclusion that the services of a doctor were necessary. Those pilots were pretty stoic. Pilot Tom Gleave, who you see here in this portrait, sustained what would eventually be known as something called the airman's burn, or sometimes the hurricane burn or the Spitfire burn, depending on the type of plane they had been flying when they were injured. Tom Gleave on that day became a burn survivor, and although he didn't know it at the time, he's part of the reason why all of you are here this morning. Pilot Gleave and hundreds of severely burned aircrew ended up at a tiny little hospital near the town of East Grinstead in southeast England. And there, they came under the care of surgeons, anesthesiologists, and nurses, led by a visionary plastic surgeon named Archibald McIndoe and his Canadian protege, Dr. Ross Tilley. Now, after the war, Dr. Tilley returned to Canada, and he influenced and trained these two men that you see here. And these gentlemen were the surgeons that trained me, and they were my first mentors in the surgical care of the burn patient, Dr. Wally Peters and Dr. Leith Douglas. Dr. Tilley, in fact, helped establish the burn center where I saw my very first burn patient, and it's where I first met burn survivors. I practiced surgery at this burn center for 30 years, and so I have a very, very direct connection to this story. This is not the real reason why I started with my story about Airman Tom Gleave. There's a much more compelling and remarkable story about the origin of a true team approach to burn care, which included everyone from surgeons to orderlies. An approach that was holistic. It emphasized the psychologic recovery and the reintegration, and most important, the development of organized peer support among other burn survivors. So for a few minutes, let's go way back in time to East Grinstead and see exactly what was just so remarkable about McIndoe, Tilley, and their team. Now, way back then, because of the advent of resuscitation with saline and plasma solutions, most of the burn aircrew actually survived their initial burn injury. Now, the conventional treatment at that time was to apply something called tannic acid or gentian violet to the wounds. And that was done to coagulate and attempt to seal the wounds so that they could heal underneath. And tannic acid jelly, which you see here, was slathered on every single burn that was encountered, and it didn't matter who was doing it. It could be a co-pilot or an orderly or anybody. Everybody was applying the stuff. The results were disastrous. The treatment didn't heal the wounds. It only hid the infections that were forming underneath, and the wounds would break down and form severe scars, and moving parts like wrists and fingers and eyelids and mouths became stiff and deformed. Devastating contractures and amputations frequently followed. Now, McIndoe and Tilley introduced approaches that we take for granted today, and which I think everybody in this audience who's a burn survivor has experienced. Saline baths to gently soak off the bandages and get the parts moving in the relative comfort of the warm water. Repeated examination, careful bedside debridement of the wounds, and application of layers and layers of gauze soaked with antibiotic ointments. But most important was moving all those burn patients off the neglected back corridors of the surgical wards and into two newly built wards solely for burn patients. Ward 3 under McIndoe and the Canadian wing under Dr. Tilley. Now, it was humorously joked that the Canadian wing was built because nobody could stand the Canadians' accents. However, in reality, it was because there was an overwhelming number of injured patients from the Royal Canadian Air Force. The creation of these burn wards achieved the obvious primary goal of reducing an infection risk to the burn patients from other surgical patients. But McIndoe and Tilley spotted something of much greater importance. Any idea what that might be? They recognized the patients would be better off being together and being cared for by a large dedicated team of specialized givers. Their empathy led to a compassionate action, which was to connect patients, survivors, and caregivers all together. It sounds so simple and obvious now, but think what an extraordinary step that was. Now at East Grinstead, you should know, no surprise, that it was the burn nurses that were at the center of that team. McIndoe was insistent that a team of specialized nurses was necessary. Nurses who could not only perform the intense physical care that was required, but also those who could form strong connections with the burn injured to help in their psychological recovery and eventually their reintegration back into society. Compassion-driven treatment of the body and the spirit was job requirement number one for any nurse that worked at East Grinstead. You know what? One strategy to recruit nurses was to expose them to patients and burn survivors. Compassion prevailed, and the strategy worked. This is Red Cross nurse Rosemary Parks. She knew a nursing challenge when she spotted one. She joined the staff on Ward 3 after meeting and being inspired by, guess what, a burn survivor, a man named Ross Stewart, at a social gathering with other burn survivors. Can you see a parallel lesson for today, even now? As survivors, your stories are important, and it's vital for your caregivers to hear them. We can't help but feel empathy and to be inspired by them. And I firmly believe it makes us better at what we do. It's a connection fueled by compassion. The nurses that were selected were chosen and promoted because of their ability to cope with the physical and emotional load of burn care. This is Dorothy Wagstaff. She was only 24 years old at the time, but she became the head nurse of all 4 operating rooms at East Grinstead. Capable people with the skills for burn care were identified. They were advanced and given opportunities for professional success. It's a reminder of what we need to continue to do today. And again, as burn survivors, you are part of this equation, and you are what help make us better providers. This is a photograph that I think embodies the whole spirit of specialized burn nursing on Ward 3 in the Canadian wing. Look closely, and you'll see the facial disfigurements and the scars of the burn survivors, but I want you for a moment to look more closely at the faces of the nurses. It's impossible not to see the shared pride, the camaraderie, the compassion, and sense of shared purpose that is at the heart of specialized burn nursing and our burn care teams. The connection between you and your care provider is so obvious. It was then, and it is now. Now, just as the burn nurses at East Grinstead demonstrated the importance of a highly unique skill set, which combined technical skills, stamina, the ability to talk to patients, form connections, and most importantly, to give hope, the same requirements exist today. I want you to consider the next 2 modern stories about the relationship between survivors and their providers. This is Hannah. She's a 27-year-old burn survivor who sustained 3rd-degree burns to 40% of her body about 6 years ago. And here's what she recently told me about how important her nurses were. You know, now that I just became a parent, I realize how upsetting my injury must have been for my dad. I remember Nurse Maxine's calmness, her confidence, and knowledge about how things would turn out. She told me the injury wouldn't consume me and that I was strong. It made the difference to me and my dad. It gave us hope. And you know what? She was right. Or this story. Brady is a burn survivor who was injured in an acid assault attack about 3 years ago. She's only 24 years old, but you know what? She's one of the most positive and resilient people I have ever met. And this is what she had to say to me about one of her nurses. Well, I couldn't see anything initially, but I do remember hearing Tina's voice. It was always her soothing voice, and when I first could see anything, and when I saw Tina, I knew it was her right away, just from her voice. She calmed me down and knew what scared me. She was very gentle and kind, and I miss her a lot. I'd like you to think about this story back at East Grinstead and ask yourself, is it any different than the 2 modern stories you just heard? Now, many survivors returned to Ward 3 for reconstructive surgery over the course of the war. When they arrived, Nurse Mary Mealy was a constant fixture, and she was there to care for them. Some of the burn survivors were quoted as saying that Sister Mealy made returning to Ward 3 like returning home. That's a powerful statement. Many of you have returned to your burn centers for further surgery, and I think some of you probably remember those caregivers who made your life just a little bit easier. These are connections that are driven by compassion. But you know what? It works both ways. This is difficult work. And as burn survivors, you have a powerful voice. When you reach out to us, the caregivers, it makes an enormous difference, and it motivates us to do better. Now, there were others on the team at East Grinstead. The orderlies were an essential part of the team, most obviously to help to lift the burn patients in and out of the saline baths as carefully as possible. But as with the burn nurses at East Grinstead, the bonds between some of them and some of the patients and the orderlies went beyond the physical care and expanded into psychological support and reassurance to the patients. Now, if you're observing things carefully, you'll notice the patient smoking a cigarette during his dressing change, which just doesn't fly nowadays. I'm thinking oxygen, right? You know what? There was a Canadian pilot at East Grinstead. His name was Leo Tremblay. And he remembered an orderly that was named Johnny Ingram, who treated Leo with what he called respect and uncommon devotion. And this is what Pilot Tremblay wrote about his orderly. When I recovered a bit, Johnny would take me out in a wheelchair into the town of East Grinstead to the Whitehall restaurant. These are the people, after all these years, that I will never forget. I suspect many of you have providers that you'll never forget. Now this is Zoran, or Z as we used to call him. He was an orderly at Myburn Center for almost 40 years until his retirement in 2022. And he was this talented mixture of humor, constant enthusiasm, and this incredible work ethic. The patients adored him. He was one of the very first people on the burn team that I met when I was a fourth-year medical student. And you know what? It was the compassion he had for patients, his enthusiasm, and the connections he made with those patients that inspired me to go into this field. This is I can't be any more honest about it. Like, these are the people that inspired me, and it was their compassion that did it. You'll remember burn survivor Hannah, and this is what she had to say about Z. During dressings, he made you feel human, even though you didn't. His jokes would get me through it, and I always searched his face for what he was seeing because I couldn't even look at my skin grafts yet. His eyes were kind, and he never looked startled. It was reassuring. Now, I'm sure there are some burn rehabilitation therapists in the audience who might be feeling a little bit left out because I haven't told any stories about them yet from East Grinstead. However, physical therapy certainly existed. It just was, shall we say, rather unconventional. You see, McIndoe had recruited a PT named Edward Blaxell. He was affectionately known by the pilots as Blackie, except there was one problem. Blackie was not a physiotherapist. The term PT stood for physical trainer, and that was a big stretch of the imagination because he was really just the headmaster of a boys' school, and he taught the odd phys ed class, but you know what, that didn't matter. McIndoe recognized something else in Blackie, and what he recognized was that he had compassion. One of the things Blackie had insisted upon was that the patients and the survivors be allowed to wear their military uniforms rather than be forced to wear the mandatory Air Force Ministry issued convalescent blue pajamas and robes, which was the official military policy at the time. That tiny little gesture spoke volumes to the patients. It gave them dignity, it gave them hope and a sense of purpose because many of them wanted to resume their duties as pilots. I want to tell you this next story about a Royal Air Force flight engineer named Alan Morgan. He lost all of his fingers, not from burns, but from frostbite. And that happened when the side of his Lancaster bomber was blown open. He was unconscious and his hands were hanging out the side of the plane in the freezing, rushing air 20,000 feet over Germany. Now, he ended up at East Grinstead, and Blackie, the so-called PT I told you about, not only wheeled Airman Morgan into the operating theater, but he stayed with him through the entire surgery. And he did that to be there when Alan woke up, to give hope and reassurance to Alan that the use of his remaining hands would be possible because McIndoe had managed to save his thumbs. Blackie then went on to write a letter to Alan's girlfriend named Ella. And Alan later married Ella, and they had 2 children. And you know what? I often wonder how that one small act of compassion affected Alan's recovery and his reintegration. What if that letter had never been written? This was part of holistic burn care. This was compassion. The stories today are no different. This is American Burn Association past president Ingrid Perry. She's now a researcher, but she's a real PT. And by that, I mean she's actually a physiotherapist. And here's what burn survivor Erica had to say. Ingrid treated me as if I had been one of her own children. And she treated my parents as if she was the one with an injured child. She had so much empathy for me and my family, and this obviously wasn't just any job for her. Each step I've made, even now, is like a proud mom moment for Ingrid. Beyond the physical recovery, Ingrid inspired in me the confidence to grow. These connections are durable and they matter. I think Every burn survivor here has experienced intense pain, so it should come as no surprise that the anesthesiologists at East Grinstead were a critical part of that team. They were part of the rich fabric of stories, and the two best known were Dr. John Hunter, and he was known as the pass-out king, and Dr. Russell Davies, who was known as the pass-out apprentice. They were a complete study in contrast. Hunter was physically big, gargantuan in personality, jovial and big-hearted, yet he was well known for his deft, compassionate, and personal touch prior to the induction of anesthesia, where he was well known to lull the patient to a calm state before administering even a single anesthetic drug. He also refused to wear a surgical mask or a surgical cap because he didn't want to look like what he called a continental chef. Now, Davies, on the other hand, was slight. He was quiet and cerebral. But as I'm going to tell you a little later in this story, he had one of the most significant impacts on the aftercare of burned aircrew for decades and decades after the war. Anesthesiology and pain relief has been a mainstay at my former burn center as well. This is Dr. Bev Orser. She's inducing a patient in the burn OR, which is located right within our burn center, and it's the operating room where we operate on some of the sickest and most critically ill patients in the whole hospital. And many years ago, I learned that our anesthesiologist is the second bravest person in the operating room. The first, patient on the table. So you've now seen that there were some very remarkable caregivers at East Grinstead, but there's more and more that's incredible and interesting about this entire story. McIndoe and Tilley's philosophy of total burn care went beyond the establishment of specialized units, buildings, and forming teams. What they and all the staff at East Grinstead were most concerned about was the psychological recovery, the morale, and the reintegration of the injured and disfigured aircrew back into society after they left Ward 3 in the Canadian wing. In McIndoe's own words, "As we worked, a persistent question nagged in my mind. When their bodies are whole again, can we also rebuild something of their lives?" This may well have been the origin of holistic care and restoration of burn survivors that we now understand to be an essential element of all burn care. And you know what? We now have data, and we know what the staff at East Grinstead knew instinctively, that many burn survivors are going to struggle with social recovery. Decades and decades before we actually studied this, the staff at East Grinstead that knew that social recovery and reintegration of burn survivors were major priorities. The staff were well known to gather and socialize with the patients and the survivors as part of the actual reintegration strategy. Here we see anesthesiologist John Hunter on the far left and the nursing staff with the patients. Everyone on that team took part in the reintegration strategy. Hunter, the anesthesiologist, loved to socialize with the patients and then later with the survivors for decades after the war ended. He was well known to take the patients and the survivors to the local pub in East Grinstead for what were referred to as his unofficial anesthetics. But you know what? It seemed that he enjoyed it on a personal level, and also he knew it was vital in the reintegration and survivorship of those patients. And this is one of the very best known pictures of McIndoe and the nursing staff at a gathering with the patients and the survivors at a Christmas gathering. These interactions were a therapeutic tool as important as the surgery or the nursing care that were being performed. The goals were to help the survivor reintegrate. But probably most famous were the organized visits into East Grinstead's pubs and dance halls and movie theaters for the patients and survivors who were in various stages of their treatment and their recovery. McIndoe and the anesthesiologist, the nurses, and Tilley promoted these events, and they attended them. And the nurses were usually the dance partners for the recovering aircrew. And all of this was compassion-driven and directed at preparation of the injured patients for their inevitable return to home and work and society. Burn survivors have told me that the transition out of hospital is still incredibly difficult. And it was no different back at East Grinstead. This is Royal Air Force pilot Bill Simpson. He sustained severe facial burns and he lost all his fingers. And he ended up at East Grinstead. In his memoir entitled The Way of Recovery, this is what he wrote. Those first sorties out of the hospital into the town were painful. Without hands, it was embarrassing to have someone help you eat and drink or wipe your mouth and nose or accompany you to the men's room. It could make you feel resentful and helpless. It robbed you of your dignity. But later in life, Pilot Simpson looked back, and this is what he wrote. We were encouraged by McIndoe himself to circulate freely, no matter how bad our physical condition appeared, and the result was a complete success. This continues today. In 2018, Jennifer survived severe facial and neck burns, and this is what she recalled to me recently. As soon as I could move out of bed, the burn staff constantly encouraged me to go off the unit. This friend brought me a scarf to hide my facial scars, but my burn OT said it was okay not to wear it. First it was just to the end of the hallway, then the main corridor of the hospital, and finally the coffee shop. This little girl saw my face and she started to cry, and I think I scared her, but all of that, hard as it was, helped me realize I have to heal and I have to live. After that, I got a day pass from the burn unit to attend my son's basketball final, and I never would have been able to make that first big step had the staff not encouraged me with the first small steps. But here's more of the story. Before leading the burn survivors out of the hospital into the public, McIndoe and Tilly and the anesthesiologists at East Grinstead did important preparatory groundwork to make that a success story. They actually gave lectures and seminars to the townsfolk and the staff and the owners of the pubs, the restaurants, the theaters, and the dance halls that the survivors would eventually visit. They educated the small outside world of the unburned at East Grinstead about the burn injured and what to expect. All of this was driven by empathy and compassion. East Grinstead was effectively trained to become the town that did not stare. In the words of one East Grinstead citizen, his job is the face of the hospital, but his will to live is in the hands of the townsfolk. Now, as a Canadian, I can tell you that Canadians are unique. It's not just our accents or polite or apologetic nature. The National Film Board of Canada, inspired by East Grinstead's reintegration efforts, created a film way back in 1944. It was entitled New Faces Come Back. And this was shown after the newsreels, but before the main feature at movie theaters throughout Canada following the war. And it's a truly remarkable piece of cinematography. It tells a fictional story of a burn survivor named Jim throughout his injury and his recovery, but it typecast actual burn survivors, including one named Jack Alloway, who portrayed the role of Jim in the film. And this film does not avoid showing the disfigurements of these survivors. The camera lingers on their grafted hands and deformed hands. I'm going to play a short clip for you in a second with the film's opening sequence, narrated by none other than Blackie, the so-called PT I told you about earlier, who eventually became a welfare officer at East Grinstead for the burn survivors. Now, I'll warn you, the music's a little overly dramatic and over the top, but I think you'll get a kick out of this. Let's see if it plays and you can hear it. Can you turn the volume up, please?
I am a welfare officer at a hospital that is still refitting for the peace, the men wrecked by the war. Placed where I am, I get the facts about these boys. And while they are still returning to you to try to make a comeback in your world, you too should know their story.
You too should know their stories. Same today, right? I hope everybody gets, I haven't seen this yet, and I'm dying to see it, but I hope everybody can see this. This is a modern movie just released by Sony Pictures about John O'Leary's burn survivor journey. Now, curiously, another unique intervention that took place at East Grinstead was the commissioning of portraits of the facially disfigured airmen. Now think about that, commissioning portraits of people with post-burn facial disfigurements and scars. And as unusual as it all sounds, its purpose was to create postcards with stories about the person on the postcard. And it was done to help the injured recover. It helped celebrate what they had been through. Back at my former burn center, I often walked past a board full of pictures of some of our survivors. It was called Celebrating the Spirit. It was conceptualized and created by our retired clinical burn nurse specialist, Judy Knighton. And she was another of the very first people I met as a fourth-year medical student on my very first burn rotation. And again, it was her enthusiasm for burn care and her passion for burn care and treatment that, again, inspired me into this career. You know, I used to stop and look at these pictures very often, but so did many of our ambulatory burn patients. This is Prince. He survived extensive burns and lost both of his hands in 2012. He's since returned to his film and stage acting career, and this is what he had to say about that board. Oh man, you know what? It took a while to accept my state and look at those photos. They were like a mirror. I was definitely filled with a sense of hope, though. If they could make it, so could I. Survivors helping survivors through pictures, film, and stories. McIndoe and Tilley and the medical staff at East Grinstead also advocated tirelessly for their patients, for everything from tuitions to job retraining, even the provision of glass prosthetic eyes. Advocacy occurred on a much wider basis. Dr. Russell Davies, on the far left, was one of the anesthesiologists I told you about earlier, who you met at the start of the story. He perhaps had one of the most profound roles in helping these burn patients for decades and decades after the war. He was perplexed by the haphazard and unequitable pensions being awarded by the government to the survivors after their retirement from active service. Under Davies' tireless leadership, he and Dr. Ross Tilley and McIndoe went on to leverage something called the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund that provided financial support to the burn survivors for decades after the war ended. And it all started with an anesthesiologist's compassion beyond the doors of the operating room. You can also get a sense of the importance of forming more powerful organizations like the Phoenix Society to help advocate for the burn survivor. Davies' obituary in the British Medical Journal in 1997 speaks to that level of compassion. Now, as a retired surgeon, I suppose I should tell you some surgical stories too. The reconstructive procedures that were developed by McIndoe and Tilley were as innovative as they were daring, and I'm going to emphasize, completely untested. Two pedicle flaps from the chest were sewn up to replace missing noses. Large skin grafts were used to be applied to the face, and full-thickness skin grafts were used on eyelids to replace them when they were missing. I used many of these techniques. I think I've lost Sam. What are you doing? They were handed down to me by my mentors, Douglas and Peters, that you heard about earlier, and they had been taught by Dr. Tilley himself. And I've handed these on to my own trainees. What you have gone through as burn patients has helped me and many, many other surgeons to improve the care we give to other burn patients. So it's another act of connection and compassion. What was most important was that McIndoe's philosophy about burn instruction involved a long-term, multi-staged, and personalized approach that was based on the survivor's needs and desires. In McIndoe's own words, here's what he said: "The progressive effect of each operation is explained to the patient so that trust is built between surgeon and patient." And it's the same today. I want you to think about this next story. Well-known burn survivor Barbara Quayle, author of the book Chasing My Dreams, once told me this really interesting story about how one of her surgeons wanted to use parts of her toes for a reconstruction. Except her toes were some of the only parts of her body not burned, and it was vital for her to not touch those. Her surgeon listened, and Barbara is forever grateful. And that story, when I see Barbara in the audience, I just saw her, and I'm grateful for that story. I can remember exactly where we were when you told me, and it just helped put everything into perspective. I think that listening to burn survivors is incredibly important when we set up a reconstructive plan. And you know, another thing I learned is that listening to survivors takes a lot of practice. Many years ago, I told a patient whose hands I had grafted several years previously that I thought, you know, his hand grafts looked great. The hands were looking excellent. The skin grafts had turned out beautifully. Later, after clinic, the burn OT pulled me aside and she said, you know what, he puts his compression gloves back on as soon as he leaves clinic. Those gloves were old and worn and they were doing nothing. They were absolutely no use, but he was wearing them to hide his scars. And that story changed the way I talk to burn survivors, and I realized it's not what I think, it's what you think. And strangely, the Phoenix Society's CEO, Amy Acton, told me a virtually identical story that she had experienced as a burn patient. Now, going back to East Grinstead, the treatments there were so pioneering and so revolutionary that one patient was quoted as saying in jest, "We're nothing but a bunch of damn guinea pigs." Well, the name guinea pig stuck, which leads to this story's final chapter, which is the formation of the most important and enduring legacy from East Grinstead, and that was the formation of the Guinea Pig Club, which in all likelihood was the very first burn survivor peer support network. Now, nobody knows who formed the Guinea Pig Club. We know it wasn't Tilly, it wasn't McIndoe. Tom Gleave, with the hurricane burn, who you met at the very opening of this story, was one of the founding members. Now, the club was created early in the morning of July 20th, 1941, after a night of heavy drinking among several of the patients and the survivors recuperating on Ward 3. And it's kind of funny in retrospect to think about that now, but I want you to picture all these burn patients and burn survivors in various stages of treatment or reconstruction. Some are heavily bandaged, some have missing legs, most have missing fingers, and they're all shuffling, limping, and horribly hungover. This is true. Not much has changed, but this is a true story. Those survivors congregated in the surgeon's mess, and they realized that they enjoyed their own company, and they recognized a role for helping each other because of their common afflictions and their disfigurements. This was empathy in action, and it's the driving force behind compassion, and without knowing it, they had enunciated the whole spirit and purpose of our modern burn survivor peer support groups. Communal suffering, endeavor, comradeship, and support were the building blocks for this club, as they are today, for modern burn survivor groups like the Phoenix Society and other peer support networks. As we approach the 50th anniversary of the Phoenix Society in 2027, we recognize how important what burn survivor Alan Breslow recognized when he initially visited a young burn patient in 1977. He saw the transformative power of peer support, which led him to form the Phoenix Society. Empathy is the figurative act of walking in another person's shoes. It's the driver of compassion, and compassion is why burn support networks are so powerful and long-lasting. Decades and decades after the Second World War ended, Tom Gleave, remember he's the one who opened the whole story, befriended and then supported a man named Simon Weston, another burn survivor who was one of the worst injured burn patients from the Falklands War. Peer support networks are powerful and enduring because they're rooted in two fundamental values all of you share: empathy and compassion for each other. The Guinea Pig Club actually grew to 650 members after the war, and it lasted over 60 years. This is a picture of the Canadian guinea pigs making a boy, I've lost a word here. Not good. Reunited after 60 years in 1999. At the top right, you can see Dr. Douglas, who's one of my mentors that I mentioned earlier. Their scars were all fading by this point, and many of them were concealed, but look at the bonds between them. They're as strong as ever. It's a long-lasting connection, and it's driven by compassion. And I recently learned that the very last surviving member of the Guinea Pig Club died at the age of 101 years in October 2023. It's a pretty long-lasting legacy. So, we may change how burn survivors communicate, but the need to stay connected remains. The guinea pigs had a monthly printed newspaper called the Guinea Pig Magazine, whereas today we have an online magazine. We have the Phoenix Society's website, and of course, this World Burn Congress. The guinea pigs were all men, and back in that era, they were the principal wage earners. So for them, financial support and job retraining were a priority. But now, the priorities are mental health support, improving how survivors are portrayed by the media, and how to better help and educate burn care providers in supporting burn patients and survivors. The needs and priorities of burn survivors may change over time, but those needs and priorities continue to exist. So you saw this picture on the right at the start of this talk, and on the left is a picture of two burn survivors, and they are helping each other. And I'm going to tell their story this afternoon at the Compassion breakout session. It's a good story. What these pictures and stories share in common is really the essence of what I hope I have conveyed to you this morning. The vital nature of connections between burn survivors and each other, and burn survivors and their caregivers. So as you experience this Phoenix Society World Burn Congress, remember the special gift you have to give each other, compassion. I hope that the stories you've heard today will motivate, engage, and re-energize every one of you. Thank you. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Good.
Rob, thank you. I mean, I knew this much of that, and I think we all think we're kind of alone creating this on the first time, but what you just taught us is we are evolving something that has been long present and needed and wanted. And I think that's a really special message for us to understand that we are carrying forward the next level, the next way that we can do this in our community. And those that are new to the community will be leaders and take it forward. And I think that's what you've just helped us see, both as healthcare professionals, the fire service, and survivors. That was really powerful, and I think it's going to teach us a lot on how we move forward. This morning, it's my pleasure, sorry, I'm having technical difficulties, to present an award that Janet Harmon, a long-time supporter of this organization. I think she stood by Alan about every step of the way early on. She supported this organization with both financial support and volunteers. She was at the booth every time it was put up for over 45 years. We lost Janet in July, but her legacy lives on in all of us who give and receive at the same time. She helped this mission move forward in the early days. And I'd like to ask her cousin, Liz Myers, to come up and help me present this award. And I'm honored this year to present the award to Matt Cunningham. Matt Cunningham is a nationally recognized trial attorney and president of the Cunningham Law Firm. He spent 25 years representing burn survivors and their families, working closely with burn teams. He's known as one of the top legal representatives of burn cases in the country. Matt's legal expertise is one thing, but I think it's fitting that he's following Rob, because I think his compassion and how he shows up for survivors is what's most special about him. He gives clearly of his time well beyond the legal piece of his work, and also has supported us as an organization tremendously to provide the services. He feels deeply about family support. So it's my honor to present Matt Cunningham with the Harmon Award this year.
Wow. Oof. What an honor. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, everyone involved in the Phoenix Society. Like Amy said, my name is Matt Cunningham, and on behalf of myself, it's not just me. I have an amazing team, and it's called the Cunningham Law Firm. So sitting in front, I'm so honored to be part of this community. And sitting in front of me is my assistant. From the very first day I started as an attorney, we started together. She's been with me 37 years. And yeah, if you all know Anita from Chapel Hill, she said to me yesterday, "Chris is your glue." And I think that's true. She called it right. So, but we're all guided by the same motivations. And we've just been really, really blessed to be a part of this community. This community is loving, it's kind, and supportive. In my legal career, I've had the opportunity to be inspired by the strength and resiliency of all burn survivors, the ones that have come to me who've asked, is there something you can do? As well as everyone here. This is probably my 6th or 7th world burn, and in 2000, there was a person I represented that he was so inspiring. At that point, I met the burn director of our burn hospital in Arizona and the director of our foundation there, and I said, this is what I want to do for my life. So, I think we all have maybe those moments in life where something happens that changes our direction, and I think God is always part of those stories. So, I want to tell you that all the healthcare professionals in here, the first responders, the firefighters, the social workers, and especially the Phoenix Society, thank you for your commitment, your hard work, and the inspiration that you give to each and every one of us every single day. I want to give a special thanks to everyone, and Sandy, and Jill, and Cindy, and Rachel, and Rick, Anita, Amy. I mean, I know I'm leaving folks out, but they're amazing. And thank you to the Phoenix Society for your commitment and your hard work and your examples of love and compassion that you give throughout the burn community. I was struck by, Amy's done such an amazing job. We're kind of similar in age, and I think, we've tracked each other. And after that experience with the client in about 2000, I started going to ABAs, and I started going to World Burns because I wanted to know what are my clients going through. And interesting, when I went to my first ABA meeting in Las Vegas, I felt like the rat on the ship because doctors don't like lawyers. So, in fact, I got those kind of looks like, what are you doing here? And it was an evolution. And then, if any of you knew Dan Caruso was amazing. He actually said to a medical group, we use this term burn team. And we know it's the first responders and the healthcare professionals and the social workers and the nonprofits that help navigate people through that ocean of despair. They help them to heal physically and emotionally. And Dan said, but what about the financial side? You know, this is an expensive injury. So, you know, he was very forward thinking in that regard. And I was very fortunate that at a certain stage then, I crossed the threshold and woof, and I became a member of this community. And I think the paradigm shift with me, because I agree. I work, you know, with lawyers all the time, and it's about, you know, client first, patient first. What do we have in common? We have in common, we want the very best outcome, either healing emotionally or physically. We want to be able to restore the burn survivor's life as much as we possibly can. But at the same time, not everybody has the benefit of a case, right? So when I had that experience in 2000, the director said to me, just like Amy in the Phoenix Society, we help all burn survivors. Don't forget us. And I haven't. And so every time we can, just because we know the amazing work that the Phoenix Society is doing, and nonprofits across the United States, and we had a speaker from France, and let's hope we get more burn nonprofits throughout the world. They need our help, and you gotta be generous. We're at our best, I think everyone believes this, when we are serving others. We add purpose to our life when we use our gifts and our talents in ways that can lift each other up. You know, we talk about the family of man. We're all interconnected. And what the speaker before me, the doctor before me, what is the link between us that needs to keep us close is compassion. So, special thanks to the Phoenix Society, their SOAR program, their Journey Forward program, and you guys are with burn survivors from the very start, and their families, guiding them, helping them to navigate through the ocean of despair, helping them to heal emotionally and physically, lifting them up and restoring their lives as best as possible. In my career as an attorney, what's unique and special, and I cherish it so much, is that I get to be with the burn survivor and their family from the very beginning. And I get to walk with them. And my team and I get to fight for them. And it's a journey. But I get to see all aspects. I get to see the stress on the family, the stress on the individual. And I think, but in my experience, in that journey, I get to see the rainbow after the storm. So it's so fulfilling to be able to be that champion or that person that plays a part, because it takes the whole community, and you got, you know, the first responders give you the opportunity to live. The healthcare providers restore you as best as they can physically and emotionally. The social workers help you to navigate and find resources. Phoenix Society stays with you for life. It's not easy. And so it's this whole community, this continuum of care that I get to be a part of. And I'm very blessed with that. But let me just share with you, because I don't want to be Irish, so I talk too much. But let me share with you why and what I get to do and why I cherish every single day that I get to be part of this community. I'm going to share with you some of my client survivor stories. So let me just share a couple, because I agree with it. It's about the stories. The stories are what lift us up. The stories, what you give to all of us burn survivors, is the examples of strength, resiliency, courage, all these amazing heroic characteristics. It allows us to sit there. It's cathartic when I come here. as humans, we sometimes get consumed in our own worries. And when we hear your stories and hear what you've overcome, you've allowed us to have perspective. You've allowed us to readjust our lives and refocus our lives and be so thankful for what we have. So you give a lot back, and you're a gift, and I'm so appreciative to be part of your lives. So in 1996, it was my first burn case. It was a husband and wife, and there was a house fire. Both severely burned, and because of that experience, though, and it was, I'm shortening these stories, that husband changed his career and went on to become a firefighter. I think ultimately he became a captain of a fire department. The wife, who was the most seriously burned, became a volunteer 911 operator. Their story was put into a magazine called Ladies' Home Journal, and the firefighter that rescued the wife from the scene was awarded Firefighter of the Year for the city of Phoenix. I think of Steve Hamlin. This poor man, I don't want to say poor because he was so heroic and he never focused on himself, but at the time when he was initially hurt, you couldn't but grieve for him. He had a beautiful wife, two young daughters, and it was an automotive defect. The flaming gas came through his car window, and he ended up with really severe facial burns, neck burns. His nose had been burned off, his ears, his eyelids, his lips. During that case, Mr. Hamlin was asked by the General Motors attorney, "Through all of this, Mr. Hamlin, what has been the most difficult for you?" This is during a deposition. Mr. Hamlin answered, "Watching my wife and two young daughters suffer." What strength, what courage, what selflessness he showed. I think of Jason Nelson. He was 90% burned from a house explosion. He was an athlete prior to that. He competed in Tough Mudder and Spartan races. He lost all hope and didn't want to live. I got to watch firsthand as a young girl who had just turned 20 was badly burned when a horse trailer exploded, and she was a rodeo champion and a model for Western magazines. She sat at Jason's bedside, and it was so impactful. And Jason is at the lowest of lows, and I don't want to live like this. And that young burn survivor said, "Jason, I know how you feel. Please, Jason, I promise you, every day will get better. Just take one day at a time, Jason, promise me. And I'm telling you, life is going to get better. So please believe me." And from there, Jason has done the most amazing things. He summited Kilimanjaro. He's part of a documentary called Courage Rising. And he is probably the most prolific, pay-it-forward guy in our burn community. Anytime he has an opportunity to help burn survivor, he does. I represented another athlete who was severely burned as same thing, gas explosion, or he was at a place of work. Prior to being hurt, he was the third fastest male over 50 in the 60 meters in the United States. A total athlete. I used to call him, because I'd be like, "What are you taking?" And he'd, "No, natural." I go, "You're a freak of nature, man." He never aged, and he just was an exceptional athlete. He was part of a world championship softball team. So he has deep burns over, I think he was close to 50% TBSA. Real extensive burns over his hands, so he had very limited use of his thumbs. As he got through his recovery, he wanted to inspire people, and people who, may have had a misfortune of an injury, and in particular burn survivors. So that man took on a contest where he said, and at this point he had turned 60, it was just his birthday. He's 60 years old, he's got very limited use of thumbs. He performed 2,123 pull-ups, nonstop, in 11 hours and 20 minutes. It's amazing. So I get to be part of those stories. And lastly, in a case we just completed, we represented a young girl who was horribly burned at age 54 when a product blew up. This courageous little girl spent 9 months in the hospital, suffered at a level that only you burn survivors can understand. Her grafts kept being rejected and massive infection, and she was slowly, being withered away and weakened. So her pain was so intense. At one point, she asked, and unrelenting and intense, she asked her parents at 8 years old, Mom and Dad, please let me die. She was able to recover. She then was given a deposition in her case. And the defense lawyer was asking her, same type of questions, tell me what you went through. This little girl, at that point, she's being deposed, says to the attorney, it's been hard. I can't even describe for you the pain I went through. It's not easy being a teenage girl with scars, but I embrace my scars now. She's one of our leaders at our burn camp and helps other children who are burn survivors. She says to that lawyer, I had to, and this is age 13, I had to give purpose and figure out why God has this happen or did happen. And I realized that it puts me in a unique position. And in my career, she's 13, I want to go on to be a burn nurse. Because of my experience, I'll be able to better understand what the patient is going through, and I can help them because of my experience. So imagine at age 13 being able to process such a horrible injury as she suffered, and now she's expressing, I want to use it to the betterment of others. Remarkable. And I should note that at 12 years old, that young girl who had their horrible lower extremity burns, she also summited Mount Kilimanjaro, which is the highest mountain in Africa, 19,300 feet. So in closing, I want to say this. I was raised with the motto, and I believe in it, to whom much has been given, much is expected in return. We are all blessed to be a part of this community. All of us, this is such a great showing and such a great week. And I wanted to express my gratitude to Covington and all you people from this community for hosting this. And again, my deepest thanks to everyone in this room, the burn survivors, the families, the Phoenix Society, they're so amazing. The firefighters, the healthcare providers, the peer supporters, everyone involved in the burn community, thank you so much. But let's commit ourselves to do what we can to lift up. Take this and let's use it in a way that we can to lift up those who are suffering and grieving. Let's use our experiences to give them strength, encouragement, and guidance. If each and every one of us in this room do this, it will send forth 100 ripples that will multiply. Every time you help someone, it sends out that type of energy. It will multiply into a mighty wave, which will improve the lives of others, our community and our country as a whole. Think of it. In my experience, and probably yours, when you reach a point in your survivor stories where you use your experience to help other burn survivors and return the people that you help when they reach a point where they help other burn survivors. This community and its examples of love and compassion and the great work of the Phoenix Society will live on forever. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you, Matt. That's awesome. I am losing my voice, day 3, and so hopefully I'll be able to get through this without losing it totally. As Matt spoke about how, and same with Dr. Catato, how we rise together, and that's really the theme of this week, and it's so important. And so as I look around the room, I know it's gone quick. We're already on day 3. Please think about the connections you've made, the people you've met, people you've reconnected with, as it's a really, really special week. And I cannot believe how packed this room is. I know I keep saying I can't believe you all got here, but I really cannot believe how when there's a will, there's a way, and people got here. I also want to thank all of our sponsors. We couldn't do this alone without our sponsors, our donors, and our volunteers. I don't know if any of the volunteers are in the room right now, but our AV SEALs are amazing. Big hand for them. They've been scrambling. I think as of last night, I think was it Mike, done 39 miles this week with all the running around. So really, really appreciate them. You guys haven't seen our behind the scenes folks, which is the show office, but because they're really busy doing all the background stuff, but they are amazing and have been running a tight ship and having to help us pivot if we have any changes. So a big shout out to the show office folks. And of course to all the staff, but to all of you. I think you all need to give yourself a big hand, a round of applause. It takes a lot of courage and strength to come here, and it takes vulnerability to stay here. So I hope all of you have allowed yourself to be vulnerable this week, because with vulnerability, healing happens. So I'm going a little off script. Sorry if Rachel's in the room. And so I really want us to reflect on this week's, how you're feeling right now and how you've been feeling. Today, it ends tonight with the dinner dance, and how some of the emotional highs, some of the courage, the connection, and shared healing. I really want to acknowledge the collective strength in this community. It's amazing. And as I said, I've been to so many of these, but I always leave with my heart full and my glass definitely half full and not half empty. So we are going to be doing a little exercise right now. If we can get the QR code up. If everyone can get their phones out, we're going to put a QR code up, and we are going to ask you to scan that QR code and then put in one word that really kind of symbolizes how you feel right now. And that can be, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but, anything from, hope, inspiration, how you're feeling right now. And we are going to reveal oops, do we have the QR code? You what? Okay, well, while they're pulling up, you guys can start thinking about your word. And then we'll reveal that tonight at the dinner dance. And for you guys have done the word, the words that are the most shared words, whether it's hope, inspiration, courage, impact, will be the biggest words tonight. And if you guys, if AV, okay, we're going to pivot. And we'll go on to our next little exercise here. So all on the tables, everyone should have cards. Are the cards on the table? They're like on card stock. And this is a time of reflection. So on the back, we really want you to think about, what this week has meant for you, and write a message to yourself. Secondly, a moment in this conference that you would like to carry forward. Someone who has inspired you this week. And I know there's been so many inspirational moments and speakers. And then an intention or a commitment that you would like to carry forward after this. And then a reminder for those hard days. So we're going to pause and let you guys fill your cards out for a few minutes. We will get some details about the codes. And then I also have just a couple little announcements. If someone left their medication on the table last night and is looking for it, it's in the show office, so please see Kelly. We also found a ring and an earring. So if you're missing those, go to the show office and ask for Kelly or Cynthia. So I'm going to let you guys write right now, and I'm going to find out where that QR code is. Oh, we're bringing pins. Okay. Okay, we're passing out the pins if you don't have a writing utensil. And then I think we're going to put just a little gentle music on while we spend 5 minutes of reflecting. Okay, so we'll give you 5 minutes here. How are we doing? Everyone raise their hand that's done. Okay, I'll do another minute. While people are finishing up their cards, I would like to invite Wendy up here, Wendy Domster, to share, kind of give an example of She's a first-time attendee, an example of some of her reflections. She's very used to being vulnerable. And for those of you who don't know Wendy, she's been in the burn community a very long time, and she's a master at closing ceremonies. We didn't really, weren't able to envision what we were planning, but she's going to come up and share and be vulnerable of experiencing as a retired firefighter and someone in the burn community, her reflections. Welcome, Amy. Wendy.
Thank you, Julie. We know the saying, pinch me, and just pinch me to bring me present, and if this is real or not. And I thank you, Eduardo. From now on, I'm going to take my pulse. And just because this was a total surprise that Julie asked me up this weekend, I have to calm my heart down too. But taking my pulse to keep me present, it's an excellent reminder. So this card, Julie, was not enough for me, so I had to write it down. First of all, it's a holy privilege for me to be here. It's after 30 plus years of volunteering for the Burn Service, for the Burn Foundation. This is my first World Burn Congress, and it's been a holy privilege, I can't tell you. Let me move along so I don't ramble, which I have a great time doing. My simple message to self, taking with me, has been, if not now, when? If not now, when? Wendy, stay present. Stay present in the moment. There's no better time than now to GSD, get shit done. Stop procrastinating. Dive in, the water's healing. The moment I'll carry forward, hands down, open mic. I've done other retreats and gatherings, and open mic has always been so powerful. I will leave and remember and hold safe space for all of your stories. Excuse me. Cross-culturally, they say when we lose our ability to share story, we lose our ability to connect. And this has been just such an example of that. So I will continue to hold safe space and remember all of your stories and look forward to the stories to come. Someone who inspired you. Julie, that's a ridiculous question. That is so ridiculous. If you're here, if you're present, and if you're paying attention, and if you're not in awe, you're not paying attention. Awe, A-W-E. Absolutely every single person here this week, if you are paying attention, present, thank you for showing up. This is amazing after last night. Oh, God. I don't care if it's the person who's changing the toilet paper or giving us toilet paper in the bathroom, to all of you participants. You have all inspired me. Everybody that's here that makes this happen. My intention and commitment, it's simple. It's to return. Make a commitment to make a difference, participate, and continue to lead with an open heart. That's how this all happens. You've all chosen to come here with an open heart and be vulnerable, and that's where the magic happens. The reminder for the hard days, Wendy, keep sharing story. Keep remembering, do not fall back to sleep. Do not fall back asleep. Don't fall back into your slumber, your groove. Do something different. Do not stay in your pattern. And better yet, don't stay in the company of those that don't feed your very soul and spirit. Thank you. Thank you, Jilly.
Your card? Thank you, Wendy, for being vulnerable. So with her sharing, I wanted to open up the room and give you a few minutes to share amongst yourselves for about 5 minutes. Because if you just write it, it's just written. But when you verbalize your intentions and what you know, how it makes you feel, it becomes, you put it out there for the universe. So we're going to spend about 5 minutes. Maybe Jeff can put on some soothing music, and then we'll reconvene, and I will be the closer here shortly, because I know it's been a long session. Light music? What?
Make an announcement to them. We're going to put it's not a QR code. We're going to put a text number. We're going to put a phone number on the screen, and they text one word of their reflection of this week, what it's meant to them, and then we'll populate all that at the end.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It's a text.
Yeah, we're going to put a number on the screen. Put the number on the screen, and then she's going to say.
Do they call it?
They text it.
They text.
Put the number on the screen.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, of course I get the conversation going and now I'm going to shut it down. Sorry about that. But you guys will have more opportunity to share. So I want you to take these cards and take them with you. And on those hard days, or when you're reflecting on your time here, pull them out as a reminder. And again, you'll have time to share. So we figured out there was not a QR code, but there is a text. So if you guys take out your phones and text one word in reflection of what this week has meant to you. And then we'll reveal that tonight. So the text is on the screen. I know some of you are I got a really good conversation going, but you'll have time to do that after. So if you pull out your phones and want to participate, one word. And if I had to say a word right now, it's hard to pick one, actually, I'd have to say. I think my word would be honor. It's been an honor to be here. And well, I can't think of one word. Honor and inspiration. I guess you can't cheat. But so the words tonight that resonate the most will be revealed tonight. Everyone done doing the word? Nope. Okay. People are asking for another minute. Good? Are we good? Well, okay. Take a picture of it, and you can still continue to do it, but we're going to move on. How are we on time? We're going to change to the next slide, so everyone make sure they have the phone number. As we look ahead, I know there's been a lot of mention. Okay, guys. I know you're all really loving to share, but let's get through this because I want to talk about the 50th anniversary. Which will be in 2027. And it's amazing to think, I don't know where Delwyn is. Oh, there she is. To think that, you know, Alan had the vision almost 50 years ago to start this. And where I know it all started in Alan's office, and it started with a box and a vision. And now, with Amy's 28 years, it has turned into a national organization. So just the amount of growth that this organization has had, but we're still not there because there are so many survivors that we're not touching. And so the 50th anniversary is not only going to be World Burn, but it's going to be a year of celebration. And not just celebrating the Phoenix Society, but celebrating, you guys are the Phoenix Society, and people forget that. You're the community, and the Phoenix Society is for everybody, and it is your organization, and you are the Phoenix Society. So big clap for yourselves, because you are the community when we talk about the burn community. So as we look forward to 50 years, we know we didn't get here alone, and that's been the theme of this whole week, is rising together with burn survivors, caregivers, burn professionals, firefighters, our sponsors, our donors, our board, the staff, the volunteers. It truly takes a village. And I got to tell you, I don't know if the couple's in here. I ran into the cutest couple on the elevator this morning, and they're first timers, and they said, "Who does this? I can't believe this week. I can't believe this conference." And I said, well, it takes a village, and it's not one person, but it's collectively a big group of people putting on this conference, and it's you guys being here. So as we prepare to celebrate this milestone, we want your voice guiding us. So tomorrow, you're going to get an eval, and it's so important because truly the feedback we got in 2023 really helped to drive the programming. So we do listen to you, and we want to create a spectacular program with the content and the topics and the ideas that you want for World Burn 2027. So it's your chance to share your experiences, your feedback, and we can't do better without your feedback. We're also eager to continue the conversation with all of you once you leave Covington. Together, we can continue to find and build our community. So shortly after you get home, we'll start getting some email communications about further engagement. Some will ask for your feedback. Others will invite you to communicate with us, and this type of communication that you'll be seeing in the future. Again, further engagement of our community. We hear you. We have SOAR peer supporters say, how do I get more involved? What can I do? So 2026, we're really focusing on how do we further engage those that want to give back, those that need support, to really that further engagement. And our board is very committed to taking that next step with our community. So our goal is to meet you where you are on your personal journey with resources, support, information that will make your healing and support journey easier. Again, as a former burn nurse, I'd come back from World Burn and say, we have to do better. We have to do better for our patients. Now I'm in the nonprofit arena, and I'm like, we have to do better for our burn survivors. So we're constantly striving, and we can't do that without your feedback. And then we are going to be announcing, and I know a lot of you already know because I've blabbed it, but our so it's not really the great big reveal because I've been telling everyone, but in the next 2027 will be in, please tell me there's a slide. Grand Rapids, yes. Thank you. So Grand Rapids, So we looked at Pennsylvania as a location because Alan started the Phoenix Society in Pennsylvania. And then we also looked in Grand Rapids because Amy the organization's been there for the past 28 years. And the location that seemed to work the best for the size we wanted was Grand Rapids. So we'll be having it back for the third time in Grand Rapids. They're super excited to be having us back. You could feel the excitement when several of us did the site visit. So super, super excited about that. We will, again, be celebrating this throughout the year, but really a big bang celebration at World Burn. And so it's going to be November 2nd through 5th, 2027. Put that on your calendars. You have a 2-year warning. I've also reached out to the ABA to make sure that we don't have other Southern, Western, all those meetings also at the same time, because I know that's why we moved our date this year. And please join us in celebrating. We've added a day of programming, and we are really exploring how do we serve the youth in some format at that conference. So without further ado, I'd like to close with Ketchy coming up to do another one of her beautiful songs. I could listen to her all day long. Please welcome Ketchy.
Okay, I think you guys probably know this song. I was surprised if you don't, honestly, but I hope everyone enjoys. And yeah, let's go. Oh, wrong one. Sorry, it's This Is Me.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say. We don't want your broken parts. I used to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say. No one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the flood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come, and I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me. Oh, oh, oh. Another round of bullets hits my skin. Won't fire away, 'cause today I won't let the shit sink in. We are breaking through the barricades and reaching for the sun. Oh, that's what we've become. I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us. Oh, yeah, glorious. Gonna send the flood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come, and I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me. toughest words wanna calm me down. I'm gonna sand the floor, I'm gonna drown them out. This is brave, this is bruised, this is who I'm meant to be, this is me. Look out, here I come. Watch out now, watch out, here I come. This is me. Whoa. I'm gonna drown them out. Oh, this is me. Thank you, guys. Oh yeah, thank you guys so much for coming to this morning session. Don't forget to come back here for open mic at 11 a.m. So I'll see you guys hopefully at 11.